Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today is all about a fun, moody coastal scene. Very simple in what I do and what I share, and I hope that you enjoy it. So be sure to check the description below for the list of materials and paints that I use. Starting out, I have taped a piece of Arches cold press watercolor paper on an acrylic board, and I'm using this half oval wash brush, and I am spraying my entire paper. I'm using the wet on wet technique here, so I want to make sure that the entire paper is wet. And now I have a lot of cobalt blue on my brush, and I'm going to lay down my first color of clouds. And all I'm doing is just pressing the bristles into the paper. Since the paper is already wet, that paint is naturally going to move around. And I alternate between the cobalt blue and then also indigo. They're two really beautiful blues that are fun to paint with for skies. You'll also see that I take a damp brush and I lift some of that paint away, just creating more definition and shape. And if you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe. And for those who have asked, I have finally created that Facebook account, and you can follow me at Jackie Peacock Art. And that is the same for Instagram, though I will let you know I am not very active on Instagram. I am mostly active on YouTube and, as of recently, now Facebook. So you can see I'm just playing around here and adding in some of the indigo and lifting it, and now taking a damp paper towel, which I sprayed, I am going over some of the areas of the paint that I feel that are either too dark or I want to create some definition. Because remember, as you lay down the paint, because the paper is already wet, that paint is going to spread. And this area that I am trying to lift out of dried a little bit, so it looks a bit on the greener side, but you know, it happens. It's fine. You just kind of have to learn how much water and paint you have and just understanding your paper. I have no shape in mind. I am just doing what feels right. I don't normally paint clouds like this or dramatic skies, so I'm a bit out of practice. But they are a lot of fun, and they are a really wonderful way to really understand paint to water ratio and the paper that you are using. Now, if you use cold press watercolor paper by Arches specifically, which is the paper I know very well, it holds a tremendous amount of water and it's very forgiving. So I cannot recommend that paper enough. It's a personal favorite. Now I am dragging some of that color all the way down because I'm going to focus on the ocean. If that paint is still wet at the top and you do hit it with your brush, you'll have a really fun rainfall effect. I did not do that in time, so I added a bit more darker pigment, and then I go ahead and I end up dragging some of the paint down to create some rain. And here you can see me separating those bristles, and not to worry, you know, these brushes are fairly forgiving, and I am just dragging some of that wet paint mixture down to create those beautiful rainfall effects. The more that I look at the sky, the more I see a bird. Can you see the bird? Let me know in the comments below. What do you see? What is the shape? I see a bird. I don't know where the head is, but I just see wings and a tail. But anyway, I can't unsee that. All right, so taking some of that indigo, and there is a bit of a hint of the cobalt in there, but I'm mainly focusing on that indigo, and I am just dragging the brush directly across the page. And now I'm adding some salt to get a salt effect, which is going to move and push that paint away and create a different form of that cauliflower effect that you would get if you were to drop in some water. And I've let that completely dry. And you can see that after I've removed that first layer of salt, it's created some really fun texture. This is a really wonderful way to get ice as well. Just a fun little fact. And now taking a bit of a dry brush and rubbing it or moving it across the paper, adding a little bit more water to spread some of it out. And I'm just trying to create some definition. And you'll see that I will darken it as well in some areas and soften it by adding a bit more water and paint to the areas of my painting that I want to be a bit more depth and not so broken up, because of course trying to emphasize the different areas of movement in the water and the sun peeking through. That's going to give that nice shimmer across the water. And I did add a little bit of turquoise to my blue here, not too much, just a little bit. There are so many incredible ways to paint an ocean scene, and this is just one take. There are many different ways. So I hope that you find some value in this way. I think this is a really great way if you're just starting out, if you're just a beginner. I do feel that it is approachable, but let me know in the comments below, how you feel about these techniques, and if there's anything that you're having trouble with, maybe I can try to tackle that in a future video, especially in regards to landscapes. Now, if you do overwork your painting, and you can see on the very bottom right hand side that I did end up lifting a little bit more paint than intended, not to worry. One, I'm covering it up anyway, but two, you can just let it dry and add a bit darker pigment and it will cover it up no problem. And if you don't know what overworking is, if you really are just starting out, it essentially means that I've taken some pigment and I've ended up removing it, and it now is not able to spread because of the water on the paper and the paint on my brush. It just continues to lift, but not in the most pleasant way. And now taking another Neptune brush with a fine point, I believe this is a size 10, I'm forming a piece of land. And this is indigo, and I believe it might be Mars black or lunar black. It really doesn't matter. Just to darken it a bit more, I'm adding black. And I'm softening what would that be? The base of the mountain, or the mountain? Yeah, I guess it would be the base. And doing a little bit of lifting there to create some dimension and then softening it. And then I have moved a little bit of piece towards the tip just to create another area where the land comes out, just to give it some more definition. And now this is a very watery mixture of that indigo with some black, and now I'm forming some rocks. And the perspective of this painting is that I would, I guess, be standing on the rocks, since the rocks are in my foreground. The water is then in the midground. And then, of course, the background is that piece of land. And you can see that this is not a very solid wash, because I want to create some definition. And a really approachable and easy way to create definition is to, what I'm doing is kind of push your bristles into the paper a bit forcefully, because it's naturally going to lift that paint. So you can see that right now as I'm dabbing away, it's lifting paint and applying more paint. And I'm not creating any smooth edges here because it's rocky. So really, if you just take your brush and just smush it against the paper, it will naturally create these really fun textures. And to emphasize even more texture, I'm going to add more salt and place it in that wet paint and then let it completely dry. You need to let it completely dry because if you try to remove the salt before it's 100% dry, it will move that paint. So you can naturally let it dry, or you can use a blow dryer of some sort. And if you still want that kind of salty effect, but without salt, you can take a spray bottle and spray the wet paint. And while there was salt on there and it was still wet, I decided to lift some paint. And now that it's completely dry, I am using some of that bleed-proof white. Again, it will be in the description below. And I am going to take a couple pieces of paper to focus where I want the Misty spray or the water spray to be. You can use a toothbrush, but I really like these Deerfoot brushes, and I like different sizes because it's going to help me control the splatter effect a bit more. And you can see I'm just kind of shaping it. And then with the edge of the Deerfoot brush, I am now smudging a bit more of that white paint. I do have to be a bit careful here because it can get carried away, and because this is such an opaque paint, it goes a long way. And even more dramatic effect, adding a bit more and having it more concentrated. And really, it's up to you at this point if you want the splatters. I really love them. I think they're fun. I also found that my rocks and foreground were not dark enough, so I added a bit more paint. You can also see that there is a little bit of salt left over on my paper, and honestly, I'm okay with that. If you shine it in some light, you can see right here. It almost gives it a 3D effect. Now, if you're going to scan something like this, then definitely remove the salt. You don't want to scratch anything. But that's about it. I hope that you enjoyed this video and found some of these techniques useful and that you can apply in your own painting. And be sure to like and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. All right, take care. Bye.